evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Eorzea, the Final Fantasy XIV based news show starring myself and the fantastic Pyra. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Happy Monday.
Mondays. Yes, mixed feelings, right?
Yeah.
We have some news today, so let's get straight into it. I guess in no particular order. I'm looking at all these news articles and I'm like, okay, some are more important, less important, but in no particular order.
Yeah.
The collector's box is still 40% off until December 9th.
Still 40%
The
off.
physical collector's box with collector's items only. If you're on the fence, make a decision. If it's something someone might like for Christmas, if it's something you might like for Christmas, make sure to get your hands on it. It's very unique that they're still on sale at this point in an expansion, so... Pyra!
I did that today.
So she'll be able to show kind of what quality we're looking at in terms of the items in the box. I know some other creators have already showed it off, so if you're interested, take a look.
Mm-hmm.
There are new optional items in the Mog Station. So maybe you can describe this while I pull up the picture of it.
Yeah, so I don't really know much about the collaboration, but I guess it's a collaboration between Final Fantasy, or to commemorate Final Fantasy XIV and War of the Visions Final Fantasy Brave Exvius collab. So we have two versions, as you see here, King of Leonis attire and the Queen of Horn, I believe it's called.
Queen of Horn.
Queen of Horn.
It's got a lot of vowels. Okay, but I do really like that.
It's giving like a marriage between Red Mage and White Mage. Because it's got the Red Mage like sash, but like the traditional color scheme is that red and white, which makes me always go back to White Mage.
Oh, those are tights, not boots. So again, we've got items that can be dyed. They are on sale for the low price of $18 a piece.
Single character, mind you.
Single character.
Yep.
Okay, we're not talking about that.
Is this become we're not talking about it?
We're not talking about it, no. Okay, so check that out if you're interested. Patch 711 dropped last Tuesday, so we got Fru came down, PvP job adjustments, new game plus stuff. Obviously, the big news topic there is Fru futures.
You got it.
Be written ultimate.
Yeah, there you go.
So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the broadcast. Tales from the New Moon. Stories relating to characters we met in the MSQ have been posted. I will put the website in the description below. This, you hadn't heard of them before?
I haven't, or if I did, I forgot about it quick, but it looks like this is, at minimum, chapter 5 out of, like, 9. Or 8. In fact, 5 out of 8, so it was kind of neat coming across my feed earlier today.
Right. So if anyone else doesn't know what these are, so these are little short stories that have been coming out since A Realm Reborn. Each expansion, we usually get a number of them that are kind of written in the perspective or focus of other NPCs or people in the story, not related to our protagonists. So we get to learn more about the lore and the places we're visiting and that sort of thing. So it was actually my goal to start reading and posting these on videos on my channel. So if there's an interest, I definitely do want to get to that point because they're really cute. But I imagine, at least when we get to the Dawn Trail ones, because to my understanding, under the new moon is Endwalker, right?
I would assume so.
I would
Because it
assume
says
so too.
that is just purely assumption. However, the name itself just makes me think of Endwalker.
Exactly. But once we get to like the Dawn Trail one, there's no way I'm going to be able to pronounce any of those words. So, I mean, if I kind of get started, then I kind of like obligate myself to doing all of them, and I'm going to get in trouble. But if you like reading little short flavor text stories about the world, definitely check those out. I'll put the link down there for you.
And it looks like the next 3 are coming out this month as well. So kind of boom, 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 like 12/6, 12/13, and 12/20 are the next 3 after this new chapter.
Okay, so it's like a weekly serial sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. For upcoming dates, we have companion app maintenance again tonight.
Darn.
You know, for all those people who are like glued to your companion app, heads up. Though I will admit, I have been using mine all day long, every hour, to keep sending my 2 hunting retainers out on hunts. Just to collect some meat to sell, because I'm a little bit gill hungry at the moment. So it is convenient for that. There is a community broadcast for the EU on the 3rd, tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep.
So for anyone on an EU server, you have the ability to participate. They usually have like giveaways, they have events in game where you can join parties, do specific events and stuff. I don't know what else to say.
I was gonna say, even if you're not on EU, like we're NA players, even if you're not on EU, they're gonna be having a live stream on Twitch. So if you're ever interested in kind of like getting to see some of, I believe it's probably dev team or like kind of an official 14 stream community kind of like thing going on, that's a good place to stop. I know we have our NA versions over here as well, and yeah, they have the English version happening tomorrow at about 10 Pacific Standard Time if anybody wanted to join that.
Absolutely. No, it's kind of fun to watch. Or, you know, at least being aware that it's happening kind of helps if you go to log into a world or server and there's some congestion issues. That would probably explain what's going on. So these are usually very large events. There's a lot of people in one zone. There's a lot of shouting in games. So, yeah. And again, we can plug for the Wish Upon a Realm. So what is this about, Pyra?
Wish Upon a Realm is a fan-generated, hosted holiday fan festival that takes place in-game and on live streams, and it's all to raise money for Make-A-Wish. So they're being held by the Final Fantasy XIV tubers, or FFXIV tubers. There are a lot of streamers that are taking part of this, not just VTubers, a lot of kind of webcam streamers as well, and there's just a plethora of different events that you can help take part in to A, just have fun around the holidays, and B, to help raise money for a really good cause. And that, I don't know if we said it before, but it's Friday, December 13th through Sunday the 15th, and like every day is chock full of stuff.
Absolutely. So I will try to link that again this week in the below as well. Community check-in. I didn't receive any. We are looking for your tales from the Duty Finder. I'm just going to say it again this week. So if anything crazy has happened to you in the Duty Finder, if you have had a surprisingly good or surprisingly bad roulette run, let us know. My email will be down below. Send us a message. I could read it on air. You can be anonymous, or you can include your name if you want. Yeah, I want to hear about it. Have you had any crazy runs this week?
Not this week. No, nothing out of the ordinary. Just some silliness between Juno Alliance Raid memes and Fru memes as well.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mhm.
I was in a party of people I know, and we had a crazy what is the one with Vothri?
What is the what one with Vothri?
The dungeon.
Oh Lord.
Where you're
I'm not good
playing-
with names.
I know, right? It just completely slipped out of my brain. Anyway, that one where I learned that you can pull huge. I don't know if you've ever been with a tank through that place, and you could do the whole thing in like 3 pulls if you really try. Like, I have never experienced that, and I got to for the first time, and that was absolutely crazy. I knew the tank, I didn't know the healer, but I was just amazed because that just seemed like a really bad idea.
It's Mount Gulg. Remember now?
Yes, that is
Mount
the one.
Gulg.
That
Yeah.
is the one. Thank you.
Did you guys wipe at all though?
No one
Perfect.
died. It was absolutely crazy because I was expecting it, honestly. You know how you kind of get that pull going on, and it's getting to a place where it's like, this is not something I personally would do. Seems kind of like a bad idea, but it all worked out in the end. So now I learned.
They'd get my comm because there's something very nice about like a very big pull from a tank in a dungeon when they can handle it. Like between them and the healer, if they have that synergy and they make it work, efficiency. I love it.
Yeah. I've been that healer before. But
Me too. Sometimes you're pulling out all the stops. Kitchen sink.
Yeah. It's never voluntary. You just kind of find yourself in that position. If it's a dark night, you pray to your gods for help because, yeah, you're gonna need
God,
it.
yeah. The squishiest of the squishies.
Yeah. So if you have stories of your own, let us know. We want to hear it. Okay. So I guess we're going straight into the hot topic now. Hot topic. Fru. You have been fruing. I have not been fruing.
No,
but I have been watching Fru. I've been falling asleep on the couch every morning with a kitten on my chest, watching Prog over the past week or so. Let's start with this. So, what is it?
Fru, otherwise known as Futures Rewritten Ultimate, is the newest Ultimate raid that just came out on 7.11, which was last Tuesday. Ultimates, if you are newer player to the game, it is the hardest level of content that the game has currently. It is not for... saying it's not for new people makes it seem scary. There's a lot of skill and knowledge of the game that's kind of a prerequisite, as well as also clearing some of the savage fights in advance. It is intended to be a hard fight. So it is based, this ultimate is based on the Eden's Raid series, the normal and savage Eden's Raid series from Shadowbringers. And I think that's kind of a big coverage of what it is.
Yeah, no, you answered a lot there. So in order to even unlock this, you have to have done current Savage, right? Like Dawn Trail Savage.
Yep.
Okay.
The full 4. So
The
all
full
4 have
of
to be
them
cleared.
thus far. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's a big deal. It's a big deal because you have to prove that you're current in the game and you're completing currently difficult content. What rewards are there for clearing this or getting world first? Like, is there any reward or is it all just clout or?
So I'll say it is kind of 2 separate things, the world first versus the clear.
Right.
The clear by itself that exists in Final Fantasy XIV Everybody gets a weapon, unlike savages, unlike pretty much everything else. Everyone gets a weapon coffer when you clear. I believe there's a weekly cap when you start, and then they release that at some point, so you can just farm it. And you also get a fancy title. This one, I believe, says the Genesis of something? Legend, the Genesis of Legends or something like that, because everything is like legend. The legend title is like directly an ultimate thing. So that is what you get for clearing, as well as a lot of clout, because it is not an easy task to clear these ultimates, especially when they're so fresh. And then the world first race is a community. I would say it is community because it's not officially backed by Square Enix. They know it exists, however, it's not sponsored in any way by Square Enix, and that is something that Mog Talk started years ago. And this year kind of happened a little bit differently. And for clearing that, they have sponsors that give away free things, like even like my Secret Labs chair that I'm sitting in, things like that, like actual gaming equipment. I believe some of the folks who won World First would be getting from that.
Okay. So there are some rewards, but it's all non-official. It's all done through this, third-party creator.
Okay. Correct.
Some content creators have implied in the wake of this race that was won by one at least, or multiple, if you follow it, people who were using third-party tools. And creators are saying that, well, it shouldn't be surprising because everyone who participates in the world race level of competition is using those tools. So is it true in your eyes, or is it an exaggeration? Is everyone using it?
I would absolutely say it's an exaggeration. To elaborate more on the kind of root of the third-party tool debacle, the first team that had reported that they cleared was this team called Grind. And in a screenshot that they submitted as proof of their clear, there was a very noticeable, if you see red dots anywhere in this week, there's a very noticeable red dot that is everybody knows. Well, not everybody, because I didn't know. The folks who do know third-party tools know that it is a third-party cheat. It is kind of like an accuracy dot that's going to tell you exactly where your hit marker is. And I would say that I know a lot of folks who do race and also do ultimates. It is not something that everybody does. I think that portion of it is kind of crap, in my opinion. I know that's a very brash way of saying it, but like, I've gone through ultimates with no third-party tools. I know plenty of folks who've gotten through it with no third-party tools. It does definitely exist. I don't think it's necessary to clear. B, I don't think everyone's using it, kind of deal.
Yeah. It's always a sticky point when you try to imply that everyone's doing something, because there's always exceptions. Mr. Happy, for example, has said that he very explicitly does not use any of those tools, even though others have implied that it's almost a given, that at least add-ons like ACT are being used by the majority of players. What is ACT, and why would it be one of the most commonly used ones?
Yeah, so ACT stands for Advanced Combat Tracker, if I'm remembering correctly. If you ever hear of things like parsing, that is what it is. It is reading your combat data and recording your numbers on logs. There are some log sites out there, some that I've seen before, like FF logs, that you can post your logs to, and it does several things. The most notable ones would be it helps show what your damage output is, which is something that the game does not support, or at least they said that they will never implement it into the game itself, into the raw game. And there are also some other things that you can do, such as replay replay your instance, so it'll kind of have like a map and show where people were at certain phases of the fight, at certain mechanics, kind of show where everybody was. Yeah, so those are kind of like the main two things that like ACT / like FF logs are kind of used for, at least from what I've heard.
Right. And the kind of the two in-game things we have that do similar, really the only DPS check we have is the Stone Sky Sea. So this, for anyone who knows, they exist in the different expansions, and you can go in and connect with the stone that matches the boss or the fight you're looking to gauge your DPS against. And you fight it. It's like a training dummy, and it will tell you whether or not you're able to make like the DPS check for that particular fight, as whether or not you can take down the dummy before it expires, before the time expires, sort of thing. Which, I mean, will tell you whether or not you're in a place where your rotation and your gear can meet the requirements of the fight, but it doesn't give you any particulars. And obviously, duty recording is something they've put into the game in a very limited capacity right now, to the point where it's more or less just not used, because there's only a handful of duties at any given time that you can use it for, and it's very limited. So given that we have similar things in game, this, first off, should tools like that be allowed? If they're covering a gap that a lot of people have noticed, and give more information that a lot of people apparently want.
That one's such a tough one because I feel like it's situational. Some of the tools that I've seen, I think I kind of like have a spectrum of thoughts where some of the tools I think they fill that gap as long as people aren't abusing the concept of them, like ACT, with bullying or anything of that nature. Like, I can see the benefit. I've experienced the benefit. I don't personally use it. However, I know folks that do, and they can read other people's numbers. Even if I'm in a random dungeon and somebody's tracking it, I can read my numbers based off of that if they upload them. So I do think that there is kind of like one end of the spectrum that has the utility that is kind of lacking that could be used. There's this kind of like middle area that's like tools that I feel like shouldn't be necessary but don't bother me so much, because it's like it's kind of like that it is what it is. And then there are tools that I feel like are blatantly cheating, and that to me, kind of like with that the red dot, is things that like feel like we're getting out of that, like, hey, we're just kind of like compensating for some gaps in the game, into this mode of like, hey, we're cheating so that we can bypass like other people in this instance in a race. Like, that's where I kind of like, that's where my moral compass says like, no. Like, that's not okay. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there are two different conversations here, which is like, should people be punished for using them just generally in the game if they're enjoying playing the game and playing with other people who consent to their use or know about it, versus should they be allowed in a competitive setting? And again, we're talking about some apps just providing additional information, and others changing the way you view or engage with the game or the setting, like ones that zoom out considerably more and that sort of thing. So what are your thoughts on each type of app in competitive play? Like, should there be a distinction, and where should that distinction be made?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, when it comes to the competitive play aspect, especially with something like the World First Race, I think that anything that blatantly changes, like, anything that changes kind of how you play and like tells you how to play and tells you what to do is cheating. I don't think that I can look at it any other way than cheating. Where I see like the difference with certain things like logs and looking at logs is depending on how they're used, as long as they're used in a capacity to kind of like learn what worked, what didn't, so that you can evaluate and then make an informed change in like how you raid, I'm fine with that. Like I think that helps people. That helps people with just making better decision making. But when the apps are making the decisions for you, the third-party tools are making those decisions for you, telling you where to stand specifically, or telling you, you know, throwing out the different way markers or like the targets over your head. We have I think it's Allegan Melon, or people call it like funny things like Alpha Knows Mom or AM for like secret keywords. It's like that's where it kind of, to me, it just is a red flag, because in those instances, it's a third-party app telling you what to do versus like you learning what to do and performing that, if that makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah, anime music is another one. People call it like literally anything in Party Finder so that they don't call it out for what it is.
Right. So here's the deal. So I've used ACT and call out apps and stuff before on different MMOs. So specifically, I used them all on WoW. I had like 20 different add-ons. They helped me with raids, doing everything from like tracking DPS to call-outs to wayfindering to pretty much everything. Like I had WoW kitted out when I played. But the difference between that and Final Fantasy XIV is the explicit position Square Enix has on the use of these apps in the game, which is they do have it against the policy, the community policy. So the apps themselves are not bad. I'm not anti third-party tools, but the use of them in this game is explicitly not allowed according to their terms of service. So why aren't they?
I think it's just basically kind of down to how they want people to play this game. I have seen, I never played WoW, but I did see in Guild Wars very similar with kind of third-party tools. I think that Yoshi P, for whatever reason, just wants people to kind of try it traditionally and like really traditionally. That being said, I know that he knows, him and the team knows that like ACT exists and that FF logs exists. They would have to be living under a like literally layers of crust into the earth under rocks to not know that it's a thing. And I'm fairly certain, like I can't think of the specific quote or instance, but I'm fairly certain Yoshi P has said to an extent like, if you don't abuse it, we will just turn our heads. Like, we don't accept it and we don't allow it. However, like, we'll just pretend it's not there and you can carry on your day. So, like, I know that some things like that, they probably just let it happen as long as it doesn't get abused. But then now with kind of more things like the race and kind of these community competitive settings, like, will these types of tools have to be restricted in some way or like looked at again? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely casting a bit of a negative light on the whole world race thing. Because I mean, I just straight up Googled FFXIV FRU world race today, and it's all like gamer articles from different journalism sites talking about the controversy and the tool use and that sort of thing. So even though it has nothing to do with the game specifically, it's still making news, and it's coming up in Final Fantasy XIV searches. So it is got to be something that's on their radar that they are still hesitating making a decision on. So the reason we were given in the past was the difference between play experiences on PC versus console. And because Final Fantasy XIV has such a large console player base, coming out originally on the PS3, it's very difficult for them to condone something that makes that original console experience different or incomplete compared to a PC experience. So, is this something where Final Fantasy XIV really needs to pony up like Larian and just allow console mods, like create a mod central of approved Final Fantasy XIV mods?
I feel like that's so hard with the slippery slope that is like defining what mods are okay and what mods are not. I feel like that we'd have to have structure. I don't know exactly what that structure would be, but right now, because they don't allow them in any official capacity, it's black and white. It's like, we don't allow them. Whether they enforce it or not is different. We know that they don't really enforce it as much as they could. They really don't. I think the moment that they if they were going to decide that, for instance, like allowing certain mods on both console as well as PC, there would have to be a lot more like clear distinction, like what is morally and ethically and legally, I guess, if you consider terms of service, like what is okay. And so I think if they were ever going to do that, it really would have to come down to like getting hyper specific about what they want to see in their game. Because right now it's one of those things, these fights are built with the idea in mind that anybody can clear them with no tools. And so if they start building systems where tools are allowed, then I think they're either going to have to hyper-regulate those or rethink how they build their fights to kind of live in that same space as mods.
Right. So, I mean, what would worst case scenario be? So, Larian went and kind of opened up to mods with the example of, well, if more games did this, if more games made their code accessible, encouraged add-ons, they would see more people playing the game because they can play the game exactly how they want to. But their game is a single-player game. Is there a big difference in a multiplayer setting, and how does the use of an add-on impact other players you happen to be playing with?
Oh yeah, first answer, absolutely it changes it. It is a completely different state of mind when it is a game that you play cooperatively with folks, and also there are things even outside of the community built, the Mog Talk built like world first race. There is competition and there is a sort of stature for getting first and like clearing within certain periods of time. If we were to like introduce those sorts of mods, I think it would change the community kind of aspect a little bit, at least in the raiding scene. I don't see how it wouldn't, personally, because it would really just redefine how... I don't even want to, like, maybe it sounds dramatic to say, like, to redefine how raiding works, but I think it kind of would in a certain way, like really kind of reshape what people's expectations are for the state of raiding in 14. And so I think it that kind of decision making has a lot of weight to it, especially with such a cooperative game like we have right now.
Yeah, and I mean, my biggest fear is people being judged for their numbers. Mm-hmm. Like, you're no longer a human being, you're a dragoon with a purple parse. Or whatever, like,
which already happened, sadly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to be potentially excluded from parties because of what stats from a device say. You're possibly going to have a different experience with people judging you based on data that they're collecting. Whereas right now, the way 14 is set up, like, respects your privacy in that. Like, there's no way for other players to see how well you're doing without personally interacting with you without the use of these tools.
Yeah, we do already, and we have for years, lived in a world where folks live in the world of 14, I should say. It's not like I'm getting called out at the grocery store for having a green parse or gray parse, but in this game, like, people already judge based on those metrics, and they're toxic. Most 99.9% of the time, it's not constructive. It's a toxic jab if you're not this level or this color parse or something. And I think I've already seen in certain instances too where like somebody's been kicked for not having a third-party tool so that the rest of the team can carry off of it. I think it just kind of opens us up for being more susceptible to that kind of like, I don't want to say bullying because that sounds a little too harsh, but like the potential for it, like it happens already, but we know that that's not allowed, and people, I think, have gotten banned from the game for that sort of cyberbullying based off of, breaking terms of service. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like that it would have to either get really hyper specific about what mods could be allowed, or it would just really open up a world of like potential additions to like that bullying, that restrictions, that you must have this plugin or you're not allowed into this party or static kind of thing.
Right. So I mean, Frosty Mog Talk was going to put out some sort of statement about how they felt it went and what kind of needs to happen going forward, but as someone not in the world first race specifically, but as someone who is working at this content right now, what is your opinion on what needs to change going forward, knowing that this has become a pattern in world races? Like,
yeah, that one's a super tough conversation to have. I think this, like, to preface, this world first race was the most unique that I've seen, and a lot of it was the collaboration that Mog Talk Frosty did with Echo Esports. Echo Esports is this big esports company. I could be completely wrong with do fact check me because I don't fully know. They have a bigger budget than Mog Talk. They had a studio that they were able to bring their team in live and do casting live and everything of that nature. And so I think Frosty, like, from what I'm expecting from him, he posted a tweet on the 30th of November saying, like, he needs to think about writing something up, kind of looking at the world first race in the future, hearing what the community says. And I say that whole thing with Echo because I think it's relevant. I think the world first race is starting to get more professional. It's no longer just like some person streaming and a few other streamers coming in and raising money for charity. It's becoming, I think this one they made well over $20,000, I think, for charity. Yeah, and they, like, it's becoming an official thing. We have sponsors coming into the race, like big sponsors, and it's getting news, it's getting recognition. And so that, I think, is also changing how the world first race happens for 14, because if it continues on that trajectory, it has to kind of be more professional. It has to be more to the rules, and there probably has to be more structure to make sure of its legitimacy, because if everyone's cheating, and it starts getting like a bad vibe and bad press, like Elgato's not going to want to donate. Right. Secret Labs aren't going to want to donate. They're not going to want to donate to something that seems like it's kind of a mockery of a race, So I think with that being said, I don't know what has to change. It's Frosty and the team have a lot to think about, because we will never stop people from cheating. There's just no way. So just how do we move forward is what's on my mind. Yeah.
Quick thought. What comes instantly to your mind? The world race winners who completed it first, despite having cheated, do they deserve the recognition of that title, or are they like disqualified and
Oh, I think they're out. Absolutely. Grind? Nah. If you have to take, I don't know about in Canada, down in the US, if you have to take like the ACTs or the SATs, I mean ACT, Jesus. If you have to take a test, and if you are someone who's doing it from scratch, from your memory, from studying, and then you're against somebody that is being fed the answers and telling you, oh yeah, check that box. If this person who cheated got the higher score, they shouldn't get the higher score. It's not, to me, you will never convince me that it's fair.
Right. So, I mean, it's not that these people haven't put in an amazing amount of effort and time into getting the clear, because they will have had to, but they had an advantage that others didn't. So is it fair? And ultimately that's what we're having trouble with. It's not discounting that these people have done a good job of playing the game. It's just saying there's no way to judge it against everyone else who's playing the game on a different level.
I would be way less mad about it too if these folks just got the clear, didn't enter the world first race, and just stood there with their weapons and acted like they achieved something. The moment where you kind of enter the race, or like enter the idea of like, hey, I won faster than you, I did better than you, or I was quicker than you, that to me, especially when there's like even just the moral bragging rights involved of like, hey, I did this before you, that to me leaves a bad taste in my mouth with like the third party tools and blatant cheating.
Right. And so naturally Square Enix has stayed as far away from this as possible. But if there's going to be a large competition like this hosted by Mog Talk with these sponsors, do they almost have to have like some sort of written contract with the participants saying that they won't be using any of these programs and admitting they would be disqualified if they did? Or do you think something like that already exists? Or is this a completely informal thing and everyone's just winging it?
I don't know what the process is, because I'm not good enough to do World First Race. Are you kidding? I'm barely good enough to do Ultimates. But I feel like it shouldn't have to be said, but I guess we're gonna have to. It's gonna have to be more clearly stated. Whether folks listen to that or not, probably not. I feel like the people who cheat don't care. They're just gonna do it until they get caught.
Right. Okay, so in your opinion, if some sort of deal is struck where participants agree to a certain set of rules, should that set of rules be allowing a couple of non-cheating mods to assist, or should the rule be no mods at all?
Oof. That one's tough.
Yeah.
Because
it's not an easy question.
No, because like parsing to me is overall fine. And I say overall fine because the moment that I don't feel good about parsing is when people use it to bully. Like when people use it to think of themselves as better or to think of somebody else as worse. I think if we're talking about pumping this world first race to a more professional setting, either say a couple of these tools are fine, or like just completely say like you can't use anything. Yeah.
I mean, it's the only way to keep the playing field level, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you look at any competition, so I'm a fan of competition shows. I watch quite a few of them. Even one big blacksmithing, Forged in Fire. So they have to make a particular weapon within a certain time frame, and that weapon has parameters that each contestant needs to meet in order for that weapon to even be judged. So if a contestant doesn't meet those parameters, they won't be judged, they're disqualified, because there has to be some way to keep everyone on a fair field. And honestly, at the end of the day, whether you support them or whether you don't, add-ons do make a difference. And they do give some people an advantage over others who aren't using them. It doesn't mean that the effort isn't there. It doesn't mean that the commitment to the game isn't there, that the hours weren't there. It just means that they can't be judged against others who aren't using it, right?
Absolutely. I have a wild idea. It's elaborate. I would love to see one day, because we saw Echo Esports, the Echo team. They were live. They were on the computers from their esports. They were there rating live. I see a lot of these teams do crazy things where they're up for 16 to 20 hours trying to prog. I would love, like, the top 4 teams get sent out to a studio and all have, like, base level computers that they use. Their own accounts, of course, for 14. But, like, they even have, like, you raid this many hours a day, you take this many breaks, you take the same lunch and bedtime. I would love, even if it wasn't, like, the same as the regular World First Race, something that levels the playing field of, like, okay, this isn't a stamina race anymore, this isn't a third-party tools race, like, this is just skill. This is problem solving to, like, the next tier. And I know that's kind of off topic, but, like, I was thinking about that this past week.
No.
I wish.
I mean, to be honest, like, a portion of the winning credit goes to how big Jimmy's bladder is, right? Like, if Jimmy has to break to go to the bathroom every 2 hours, that's going to upset your prog. Yeah. So, I mean, it's ridiculous to have factors like how late you can stay up, whether or not you have a family, whether or not you have a large prostate. Like, these should not be things that change your progression in a world race, right?
Right. Like, I can understand it. Like, that one bothers me the least, only because, like, you know, if somebody's putting in 12 hours a day, they probably worked a lot harder than the folks that did 2 hours a day. Sure, I agree with that. But in an ideal world, if we were turning this from a race into, like, a spectacle, like an event, I would love to see a world that we, like, have, like I said, maybe up to, like, 4 or 5 teams. They duke it out, and it's like, it's not stamina, it's not having to buy a gamer bucket to avoid going to the bathroom. It is just clearly just skill level. Absolutely just skill level, and that's it. And not all these other factors involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, people's willingness to destroy their relationships and their health for a video game is the reason why things like the Ishgardian rankings and stuff really don't happen anymore. Is because it's been proven, like, we are willing to trash everything in our lives, throw in the match, set it all on fire, just for those kudos. At the end of the day, just for the title and the weapon, right?
I know folks, I have some mutuals, kind of streaming mutuals that are still doing the race. They're still trying to clear, that took, like, a 2-week vacation from work and life. Literally halted all plans for the next 2 weeks to do 12 hours, like, raids, plus 12+ hour raids, which, in one hand, all power to you. Like, that is, if I didn't have a full-time job, and I would do it, maybe not that hardcore, but I would absolutely be gunning until it's done. But, like, that's a lot. That's a lot for most adults, that, regardless of work situation, relationship situation, like, that's a huge commitment.
No, absolutely. So, any final thoughts on all of this going forward? You know, any ideas, suggestions? Yeah, let us know. Last words.
I think I said it all. Like I said, Frosty, if you ever want to talk that idea, call me. Because I truly love the World First Race. I think it's fun, regardless of the drama that happens. I do see people really bust their humps to get into first, and it is, like, I feel like I'm winning with them. Like, I don't watch sports, I watch the World First Race. And, like, I feel their excitement when they go through and they clear. And then my last parting note on that is, I don't even think we got to, like, say who won. Kindred is the actual winner, non-cheating, and they were the first winning team that streamed, because some teams don't stream. Huge congrats. Y'all killed it, and that is not easy to do. So
Awesome. And I mean, I didn't watch any of the race itself, but I did watch progression during that time from people who were progging. And you know what? I enjoy watching that part of it. Like, aside from the race, watching people kind of talk through things, pull out Microsoft Paint, do some drawings, like seeing people work through that, it is really fun. But the competition just adds another layer to it. And then that's where you see people at their best and at their worst, right? Competition brings out the best and worst of everyone, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with me on that topic. What are you going to be up to this week? Where can people find you?
Y'all can find me YouTube, Twitch. I'll be streaming multiple times this week. Speaking of Fru, because you haven't heard it enough, I'm also progging Fru. My team, yesterday we got our P1 completion, so we are on to phase 2. So keep an eye out for that. If you want to see a slowpoke get through Ultimate, you can find me there.
Congratulations, by the way, both for unlocking it and for participating. I have not, though. I did make a promise to my community a couple years back that by 8.0 I would be participating in the current Ultimate. So I've only got a couple of years left. I unlocked and did some of the Unreal this time around. I started in on Extreme 3, so I'm trying. I'm honest to God trying. So
you're getting there.
I'll get there. I am not streaming this week. I haven't broken it to anyone yet. I will put a post out on Discord. I am working some extra hours this week. But my December schedule will soon come out with such things as potentially a baking stream. Back by popular demand, Debbie in the kitchen. And yeah, let's have a baking stream from a celiac. I'm sure everyone appreciaes that. With a little kitten kind of bouncing in the flour. And you know, costume contest, Christmas party, that sort of thing. So stay tuned. There is a lot to look forward to. Happy December, everyone. Yeah. We will be back next week, same time, same channel, with more Final Fantasy XIV news. Look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same channel.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in game. Bye.
Bye.